Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Wacom webinar. Let's wait for a few more minutes before we begin so that people can settle in and get comfortable in Zoom. We'll be starting shortly. All right. Welcome to this Wacom webinar on a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're all comfortable and settling in for the Zoom webinar with Joanna Henly, aka Misled today. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a fantastic webinar. Before we jump in, let me do a little bit of housekeeping so that we can enjoy this all together a little bit better. So the webinar is going to last for roughly about an hour and a half, with plenty of time towards the end for Q&A. For your questions, we recommend to use the Q&A section of Zoom, which you will find in the bar in your menu below. This makes it much easier to answer questions on the fly or collect them for consolidated answers towards the end. So no hand raising, and keep the chat for really urgent matters like funny sounds or whatsoever. Makes it much easier for us. Some questions will be answered directly during the webinar. Also give Joe a minute because a lot of the questions will probably be answered right at the same time and same moment as you actually ask them. And yes, so there's also going to be a follow-up email in a few days' time where we will address additional questions where we might not have had time to actually address them. And we will share additional information in this email with you. And it's very well worth checking your spam. Might it be stuck in there, because Joe has some surprises for you ready. Okay, so who are we and what is this going to be about? So you probably know Wacom, and if not, we've been around for almost 40 years, and we are specialized in digital pen input technology, as it calls, or simply said, everything you want to do on a computer that doesn't fit through a mouse or a trackpad, it's probably going to be a Wacom. With us today is Joanna Henly, aka Misled. She's the founder and director of Misled Studio. She's worked for a lot of corporate brands, and I'm sure you've seen her art in magazines and newspapers and advertising campaigns before. Yeah, she works on portrait commissions and has a long history and rich experience in working as a freelancer and artist on different projects. And she's going to share her insights and some tips and tricks for you in how this all works for her. So without further ado, let me hand over to Jo so she can start the webinar. Hang on. There you go.
Okay, I'm just thinking about my housekeeping rules, because obviously we are in the home. Firstly, I know that the Wacom screen, guys, we need to have that as a shared screen. I did leave that to change the presentation, so we need to access that. I did try and share the screen, but because there are other participants now, so I don't know if that's something you can do behind the scenes once I'm doing that. But yes, thank you for the intro, and thank you everyone for being here today. I don't know what time it might be for you. It's afternoon here, maybe it's evening or morning with you now, and yes, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to be another artist, team member of Wacom Home. I think the cat might join us at some point, Mackerel. And I'm going to be walking you through my work-live space. I call it work-live space because I chose this place to live because of the light and because I really, really wanted to get back into painting. Anyway, so I am going to walk you around today and I will show you how I use the space, how I work, and obviously a few people have started asking questions. I will have a look at those, and if the time's right, I will answer them. Really want you to get as involved as possible. Really want you to have a few. We're going to have a poll at one point, a couple of polls for you to think about, where you can kind of direct a little bit about how the next hour runs. It's going to go very fast, so it means that I can talk over all the areas and you can tell me, you can vote on the areas that you'd like to see more of. So, yes, back to the beginning. Yes, thank you. My name's Jo. I am the director of Misled Studio, as Team Wacom have introduced me. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm starting the tour in the drawing painting space. So we are on my drawing table. If you look at the back here, this is a very blank, big wall, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. I'm going to keep an eye on time because I know that this is going to go very fast. Also, I do understand that there will be lots of people looking for stylistic approach, development, and art technique answers for their questions. I'm definitely available for that. I'm really excited. But the main aim for me today, and this was an idea that I proposed to Wacom at the beginning of lockdown, was to have an opportunity to workshop and engage with you all and create a sense of accessibility. So I don't know if any of you saw my live stories today. This is very much about how I can help, because also, as the guys said, I'm an artist, illustrator, I work for brands. I'm also a mentor and a visual storyteller and consultant. So I do lots of things as well as the artwork. So today's going to be very textural because, as you see, I'm not doing a digital drawing to start with. We will be looking at, later on, looking at how the work that I've created here and in this drawing space then lends itself to my digital work, but I won't be live drawing per se today, but I'm very available for technique questions and style requests and anything else. So keep the questions coming. I'm so happy to be here. I've not long moved in. I moved in at the beginning of the year. It took a really long time to settle in and set up, and then quarantine happened. So there's lots of bare walls. There's lots of space, but I'm really excited to tell you about all the projects that are popping off at the moment. And yeah, I'm gonna give you a little tour to start with. Then once we've had a little walk around, I'm going to talk about the approaches, the techniques, and I want to know about any problems. We'll have a poll in a minute so you can get involved. Any things that you have issues with or you're having problems with, whether you're an artist that worked at home for a really long time. A lot of us are working at home now. And I'm sure whether we are returning to an office environment. So I really want to connect with that today, and because that's something that I've been doing for 12 years now, and I've a bit obsessed with how people spend their time, how they are productive, how they work, how they can manage everything. So we're going to really focus on that today. So I want you to have a think about questions that you might have that relate to that. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the screen on. You see some plants. Plants being obviously the freelancers, artists, best friend, especially in self-isolation. So you can see an easel here, some paper. So I'm going to just do a quick scan. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the next section. Okay, so what's really important in your space? Okay, we all have very different needs. You know, our brains are wired differently, our jobs are different, our situations are different. Maybe we've got family, maybe we're living on our own. So creating a space that's elevating the purpose that you have or the need that you have at home is really important. So you can see here, this is my drawing space. This is where my light is. This is where I can move my table. I can put on the wall mood boards, inspired images and work in progress, things that I want to kind of really think about. I think it's really easy to just throw so much stuff on the wall, but I find the more imagery I have up, the more I kind of become desensitized to it. What do you think? Is that the same for you? So I try and keep things that are available to me visually as the projects that I want to go to or the projects that I'm working on at that time. So here I've used the center of the room to really focus on my materials, my books. So this is the clutter. This is a thing that divides the space. This made such a difference. And when you are at home and you're on this is your only space that you're using, making small differences can make you feel a lot more kind of in charge, a little bit more empowered, and those small differences can make a huge impact. So changing the bookcase from here to here made such a difference. So now, because I have this clear space, which is for eating, maybe reading on my iPad, has now, because I've cleared that space, I've got this great idea where I am planning a mural. So for those of you that might be disappointed that I won't be live drawing today, I will indeed in the coming weeks be creating some live work on my social channels. I think Instagram. So from here, this is really important, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we need as creatives. So as you can see, this is really messy. It's really kind of reacted to the paper, and this is exactly what I want. I want something where I can stand up. I'm a mural artist. I create artwork in boutiques and luxury homes. It's a really important thing that I do, and I have to remind myself that this is what I do, but not just having it up, just having a roll of paper. So this is something that I just got cheap in the art store, and just being able to go, right, oh, this is me using something other than my wrist. So what I mean by that is once you're using all of your body, you're animated, you're working in a different way. And it was really interesting when I did this and I filmed myself at the same time. It made me realize, it brought back that feeling of what it felt like to draw in front of people, to draw in front of an audience, and to have that kind of fear, that excitement, and then it kind of just blend into me being with the material and just flowing. So it's for me to be able to connect with something that's really important to me physically. Also, this is something that is free flowing. I'm allowing it to be a mess. It can grow, it can do anything, and I can just keep drawing on it. It's inspired by something I did on a Adobe video at the beginning of the year, and it just makes me really happy. So might be a nice question. I'd love to hear what your answers are. What are the things that you feel that you need that makes you feel creative? So this is my thing. This is me working large, playing, getting up, and just experimenting. So this is a piece. This is on actual cotton canvas, so you can see actually underneath, because I haven't primed it with more than one sheet. So this is a collection of self-portraits that I drew of myself at the beginning of lockdown. So this, once we go in to see my other work, you'll understand what I'm talking about with layers, where I'm using paint to kind of instruct my development, and I'm just putting water, acrylic, also these guys, which are great, which are acrylic gouache, where you can apply them and then use paint water to give them a sort of watercolor effect. This is a piece that I created about sort of being still and quiet and waiting and not being away from your family. And this is a really important piece for me at the beginning of quarantine. So I'm using these as studies for paintings. I'm using the paintings so I can explore in larger spaces, different formats, feeling creative. And those techniques and those blendings and those glazes I can then take to my digital work, because obviously I'm not going to be able to scan this. I'll be able to photograph it and maybe do something. But this, for me, this room basically is my space to be creative, for me to be happy, to me to feel connected as an artist, not somebody that's making money creating work. So you might not have a big space, and most of us don't. It's taken me years to have a space like this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I manage that, because I found for years that I would constantly elevate my, let me click that so I can see you. I would constantly elevate the work that I was doing for clients. Have you ever done this, where you're like, I really want to do this project and I've got this really good idea, but you never really plan it. It's just something that you've started drawing, and then when you've got time, you'll kind of tap into it, chip away at it again. And that's something that I really wanted to change the last couple of years. So I treat my self-initiated work, which is this. It doesn't have to be for a project. It could be just for me. I treat them as important as my client work. So the way that I organize that is through different folders, which can really help actually when you don't have much space. So I'll have like a flow, a workflow, which means this is everything that I'm working on at the time. This is the idea for here, obviously. So I'm working on styles and notes for that. And then this is something that I've been working on since I did the live Adobe live streams in, last year. And then these are going to be vignettes, which will be part of a wallpaper series, repeated pattern. So this is really great because I can take it anywhere. Something that's really important about space for me is that I can use more space. What I mean by that is I can be mobile as well. I can take this, and this is also important. I can take this to another room. I can work in the kitchen. I can work outside. I'm not stuck in one place, and moving around is really important. So I try, as I said, not to have so much stuff in my on my walls. I use post-it notes for everything. I've got all my planning in here, and I should have, let me just see, I'm just going to pop this here. I should have the second phase of the wall project. So yes, so I'll just do it like that. Oop. Let's do. It's so great. I've done so many of these Zoom meetings, as we all have. This is my first hosting Zoom, so I feel very privileged to be here, but I'm still a bit rusty. So I've got 3 ideas. So this now becomes my sketchbook, and I can put this on the floor. I can add stuff. I can take these out if I want and put them in here if I'm meeting someone to talk about the project. And then I've got this space where I can kind of scribble in. This is great because I had a real creative block at one point, and my excuse for not working was scarcity of paper. I was like, well, I can't do expressive lines and then just waste paper. But you can have, this is from Paper Chase, which is amazing, and it has so many sheets of paper in it. So this is the studio, and I'm going to walk you through to the other space. So as I said, I really wanted to make sure that I had a great working space as well as living space. So we've got this is going to be a shared screen, I hope. So let's see if I can fix that now. Yes, let's pop that up here. Great, that makes more sense now. Okay, great. Okay, right, as I said, this is my first hosting. So, okay, so we have the screens all set now because I'm going to show you some of my work, talk about how I use that sort of layering technique to work with my digital artwork. And then, yeah, so let me have a look at time. How are we doing? We're doing great. So we're going to go to my Wacom screen, hopefully. Let's have a look. So you can see over the shoulder. We need to share this one. Let's give that a go. So what's been really important to me is to have the space, because I've found that using a black screen, even if it's this big, especially if it's the iPad, because I know a lot of our Wacom users do start with an iPad, I find that it's really great if I want to do one image, but if I want to expand out and if I want to really kind of explore the visual narrative or explore backgrounds, I'm limited. Obviously with Wacom you don't have that. With Photoshop and Wacom you can kind of expand your backgrounds, so it's a lot better. But what I find is I make better decisions, or I can make more mistakes, basically. I think that's what's important for traditional work for me, is the mistakes, the kind of not knowing, and it just having I'm kind of collaborating with it. Okay, so I am sharing my screen, I believe. So let me double check. Let me just try this, because what I want to do is just to show you a few images that kind of blend into this. Also, do we have the polls available? Have we looked at that? That would be great if you wanted to get involved and look at what areas you'd like to talk about. Okay.
Launching the poll now.
Great, thank you. Okay, right, so many screens. Okay, so you can see with this image here how I've used a kind of blending technique, and what I'm trying with my work at the moment and what I'm exploring is how what I can learn digitally that I can bring into my paint process. So it's kind of like they're conferencing together. It's like being in a conference with people with different disciplines. And this is how I work with brands. This is how I work in collaboration. It's like, what can each person learn from each other? What can each medium learn from each other? So that's kind of my aim through doing this. I like simple approaches. So I will use a lot of brushes that really just kind of resonate with Conte brushes, so resonate with drawing, resonate with kind of airbrushing and layering. So at the moment, this is working, and glazes, so you can see with the organic part. So this is quite a teaser actually, because nobody has seen this quite yet, and this is something that I'm working on. It might change, it potentially could change, but it's trying to use the aspects of drawing, airbrushing, digital, and painting. So, okay, I'm just going to move okay. I'm just seeing the responses from your polls, which is great. Okay, which we can talk about. Great. Okay, so we've got a good 49% at managing your time. This is something which I'm absolutely obsessed with. This is something I mentioned earlier. I was always wanted to know how people stayed super productive, and I always felt that I was just about achieving my daily tasks and not really getting space to do the kind of bigger picture kind of plans. So for me, I have to start with writing. I do get up super early, but I spend the first hour of my day without fail writing a journal. So that is really good for me to clear the fog. Also, 1 second, it's not here. Even though I'm a real advocate for having everything in one place, I think it's just impossible. And if you read it and research other artists and designers and even CEOs, there's so many different platforms that we have to work on. But I do find that using a bullet journal is amazing, because I will, at the beginning of the week, manage every Monday or every Sunday night, I will make sure that I've got priorities that I have to fill the whole week. Then from that, I will look at the days of the week. So this one's a good one because it's quite empty, because it was full of, let's do this one. So we have a list of priorities, so everything you need to do in the week, and then looking at each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I find this is really good with post-it notes as well. So you could put all your tasks that you need, and then you can put it in the calendar days, but just having like a brain dump and going, okay, I need to do that here, this day, the next day. I have used I think I got it a few years ago, 3 years ago, a really, really good book, which I, as you can see, really studied. There's lots of post-it notes in here. This is called Organising for Creative People, and this is such a good book. It's for artists, all kinds of artists, from fine artists to designers. I think it would work for everyone. It helps you with your email filing, because I definitely used to get email overwhelm. This is really great for that. Also, you know, where you put things, where in your space that you put things, a bit like what I have configured in my space, where I have certain zones. I have a quiet zone, I have a productivity zone, I have a space where I can look out of the window, things like that. So I will be putting this in your resource pack and the books that fell on the floor. I will also mention the journal writing, which is really good to kind of clear your head at the beginning of the day. I have spoken to all the artists that I mentor, and also a lot of my friends here. Do any of you know about The Artist's Way? This is an amazing, amazing book. It's having a real resurgence at the moment, and the author, Julia Cameron, has had another edition, has just published another edition, which has got a much nicer cover than this. This is great. It's like a 12-week course. It's really good for managing your time, also looking at creative blocks, also looking at your creativity. It's, as I said, it's a 12-week course, but I have adopted the morning pages, which I have used for the past 12 years. I use it every day. That clears my mind. It's anything that's niggling in the morning, I just work through it, and then I arrive to my bullet journal, which I know somebody's asked me a question about. So many questions, thank you so much. I'm going to get to these in a minute. And then as soon as I've done it sometimes takes people 20 minutes, it takes me an hour, because I do my planning as well as kind of having a little bit of a brain dump. And then I look at how I'm going to manage my day. So this will be time chunks. I look at, because I like, and I need to work with lots of different projects, I like to touch different projects, which means that I will put a timer on, or an app, and I'll set myself 25 minutes to 50 minutes on a project. And I will then have lots of breaks, and I will make sure that I am having like those regimented days. Although I am an artist, you guys are creatives, so I really do think it's great to have a structure, but it's also nice to have something to rebel against. So what I mean by that is, some days you're just going to wake up, especially at this time, you're going to wake up and go, I actually don't want to do all of this. I'm not feeling this. So I would definitely advise being a bit of a magpie, which is what I was told at art college. Keep collecting things that you love, keep screen grabbing, printing, keep nice folders for things that are essentially exciting for you. Always have an available mood board. So even when you're having a day where you just don't want to do anything, sometimes, you know, your art could be something that is nurturing you, it could be something that is play, so it's about experimentation, or it could be just something that is just kind of getting you through a funk. So having that can help you when you don't want to manage your day. Sometimes, you know, it's great to have all these techniques, but sometimes you just don't want that. So what do you do when when you don't want to do that? Are you good with knowing what your routine is now? Because I know, or I feel that a lot of people are becoming a lot more intuitive about how they want to spend their time, because we've been at home for so long and we're kind of self-managing ourselves, or managing ourselves. So I hope that it does make a real difference to how we look at our kind of work ethics, but something that we will be at the heart of managing is you, managing yourself, managing your time. So that's why I'm talking about space. That's why I'm talking about time and activity, because you need to be in control of that all the time. You need to kind of keep your vibes up. You need to keep good. You need to keep happy to be able to be creative. So through doing this, the days that we've had, through having these very kind of, as a lot of people will say, Groundhog Day, we're kind of understanding, or I know that I've had a better understanding about routine. So I know when I want to get up, I know when I want to have lunch, I know when I want to have a coffee break, at what time, and I also know when I want to have a nap. So if you have like 3 anchors or 4 anchors in the day, that's like, okay, well, actually I'm finding that an awareness is the starting point. I'm realizing that I want to have a cup of tea, or I want to have a coffee at this point, or I realize that I'm really tired at this point and I want to have a nap. Then you can work your time blocks around that. And I hope that really helped. Okay, so I'm going to show you also, I'm going to go through. So with the screen sharing, I'm just going to pop over here. I have to come out of this screen to opt into my Keynote. So I'm going to give this a try, and I hope this will work. So I have to stop sharing. I think that works. Okay, so we just have to do it this way. Okay, so this project was, because I really didn't want to come and talk about my portfolio today. I really wanted to talk about how I was managing being at home, how I was managing in quarantine, the work that I'm producing, and things that I've adapted, and trying to use that time, that creativity, that work into something that I can develop and to move forward. And I hope that's coming across. So this is now a series. So the first piece that I showed you on Photoshop is the last of a series. So the first one is, so they're all quite elemental in a way. So we have one which is very kind of focused on carnival, because this is the one on the right. It was actually carnival here in Lisbon just before we all went into lockdown. So this is very focused on dream and moonscape and carnival, and I wanted to play around with these really lovely kind of sparkle effects, which are used with kind of blur. I use a lot of gradient and a lot of Gaussian blur. So I'll apply with a watercolor sort of textural brush, and then kind of fade out and just sort of play in that way. So I wanted to use this in a kind of more painterly fashion than the work that I've done previously. The middle one is all about kind of getting through, being the center of your universe, being the sun. You are the sun. So this is, you can see this piece is using those blue. I'm really obsessed with this blue. I can never remember the name of the blue. I keep wanting to call it turquoise blue, but it's not. This blue, and this is kind of really shaped this image in the beginning. and then bringing that through. And I use a sort of canvas, which I photograph my canvases and use. It's kind of an ultramarine blue, but it's not. It's more aqua blue. But thank you. And that's using masks, using different layers, and then bringing that through. But this all happened from that scrappy piece of paper. Definitely have lots of paper so you could just get into your child zone and play, and just get a fat brush out, get some paint up, and just be free and go, oh, this is what my line looks like, this is how I'm feeling. Just get it out of your system. It's so important. So that's how it's kind of feeding into this work. So okay, so you can see with the first one how it started, and I started with the sort of Conte brush that I was talking about. So I use that very much like in a hatching, kind of like a cross hatching, or in a kind of shading, or to emphasize certain features. I really wanted to keep a kind of balance that had a feel of like a contrast, and build the balance around the face for the focus. So you can see that a little bit bigger there. Okay, so the canvas that you saw in the drawing room, in the painting studio, it began like this. And this is on the left image on the screen. Let me move this over so you don't get to see everything. This image was something that I created digitally after I was just a bit fed up, and I just took a load of photos on my iPad, self-portraits, and just wanted to do something really quick, and I really wanted to capture that kind of feeling. Doing layering again, playing with that theme of layer and texture, I wanted to move forward into how I can play with overlays and this kind of like double exposure idea, which I've worked with a bit in the past, but wanted to really highlight that. So I used a projector, actually, if you're interested, to project this sketch on the right to then draw up on the canvas. So I've been working on that. I've been kind of chipping away at it. That's the great thing about it, is that I can turn it away, or I can kind of play with different marks, and then I just knock it back with a white, and then maybe introduce another color, and then I just start again. But it's just a little bit of an area where I can just play, really, and it's so important to me. So I realized, I guess through my writing, the awareness of spending more time on my own, through doing The Artist's Way as well. I read The Artist's Way 12 years ago, before my career kicked off, and I realized I didn't actually finish the book. I got to maybe chapter 8 and everything kind of really kicked off, and really felt that this was a really good time to read the book again and do the exercises. And what I realized was that I needed to play. I really needed to engage with, let me see. Okay, so can you see the shared screen? I've got a note that this isn't being shared. I feel like it's being shared. Let's see. Okay, I think it is. Okay, I'm assuming it is because I haven't heard from Wacom. Okay, so going back to that, yes, I am sharing my screen. So maybe have a look. If you're on your phone, maybe scroll left. Good, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so what I realized to make me happy as an artist, and obviously as a human being and creative, and to expand and to not feel restricted, was to be able to paint again. So that was so important to me. So I guess I'm kind of really driving that home. Okay, so I created a little package. As you know, you will be receiving a package in the next 24 hours, 48 hours with the Wacom follow-up email. Sorry you have to wait a little longer. I will have this PDF on it, and also this is going to have a rundown of what we talked about. So I'm going to quickly go through this. So I really kind of, I mean, I could talk about this for weeks, and I think I really, that's the only thing I really struggled with, was how do I narrow this down? Because as I said, I've been working from home and working remotely for over a decade, and I'm constantly kind of trying to improve my skills of managing my time, of being creative, and also using my space and looking at what my needs are. Okay, so I've added this information, kind of like a run through, and a few extras as just 4 pointers. Okay, so the first one is your environment, your space, and the second one is materials and techniques to keep creative. So that's like, you know, being connected with what you need, journaling, and also creative blocks. And then let me go down here. And then tricks for managing your time. So this is what a lot of you replied to in the poll and said, you know, time management is important to you. So this is something that I hope that I can inspire you with some of the techniques. I'm going to talk about this one in a minute, but the last one, which is really important at the moment, is managing with isolation or self-isolation. So I'm going to take from your questions, I'm going to take some notes as well so I can add to this, because I really want it to be very interactive. I want you to be able to direct as well. I know we've been talking a lot, but okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm just going to run through this, and then I'm going to look at your questions, and then you're going to let me know what you need to know a little bit more about. So managing time was the biggie for most of you. So I find that, especially because I'm self-isolating, not so much now, but I am spending a lot of time on my own. I have done for the last 4 months, that if I have a lot of projects on the go, I can, because procrastination is everything, isn't it? That's kind of what we need to do, is not make it the devil, not allow it to be negative. So when I procrastinate, if I've got loads of projects on, I can just jump between one project to the next. So I'm kind of doing a practical procrastination, productive procrastination. So that's why I have the folder where I know exactly what's happening. So I'm going to talk a little bit about moving those forward as well. But being aware of what you need at all times, what this means is, if you feel at any point you were doing anything and you're like overwhelmed, you're anxious, you're not feeling it, or you're just fed up, you need to just stop. You need to have a moment where you have to engage with what you need at that moment. So it could just be a cup of tea. It could be a walk. It could be phoning a friend, or it could be just doing something else. That's so important for our productivity and our mental health and happiness, to be able to go, actually, I'm in charge. I'm not doing this right now. I don't want to do my taxes now. I don't want to speak to this person. So there's lots and lots of techniques that you can use. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So I'm going to run through these. I've got quite, as I said, I've got quite a lot to go through. Okay, creating time blocks, we've talked about. Routines, we've talked about. Start with, what time do you get up? Around about. What time do you want to have lunch? What time? And I do really, really advocate. I am a really, really big advocate for napping. It's really important. I can't remember the statistics, but it's something like you're 34% more engaged and aware and can concentrate. It's really important. And you know, these days kind of roll into one at the moment. So napping, I spoke to one of my favorite people and one of my favorite artists at the beginning, and I said, how are you managing? He just said, I'm just napping. And I was like, wise words. So yes, I haven't added that, but that's in my routine and it should be in yours. So there's times that you have won now. You've won that 45 minutes to an hour or whatever it takes for a commute. What can you fill in those 45 minutes? That's nice. Can you read the book that you stopped reading because you don't get on a train? Things like that. Just really have a look at things that you need to bring back, things that you've given away that you can bring back. So piggybacking. So every day at 12 now, I've realized that that's when I want my coffee, because I know that I can have a good block of time before my lunch afterwards. And I know that I can do something beforehand. So I piggyback that with, because I know it's going to be 20 minutes, I piggyback my coffee break with learning Portuguese, because I'm terrible. And I live in Portugal and it's really difficult for me. So I make sure that I'm now doing that for 20 minutes and it's using a different part of my brain. So when I go back to my other stuff, I'm like, actually, this is quite cool. I've just achieved this thing and I'm doing it every day and I'm picking up the momentum. So piggybacking is really good. Getting 20 minutes to just doing something else. You know, that could be anything. Maybe you can suggest some stuff. Okay, managing with self-isolation. This is such a biggie. This is such a biggie. And if anyone is watching this and is present and is really, really struggling, I really, really do suggest that you reach out. And I know sometimes it is really, really hard to reach out to people when you're in need, but there are ways of doing that. Maybe you can, and I've put this at the bottom of the list, but it's really important. I mean, these are all important. Is there something that you can give somebody else? Is there a way that you can collaborate through a skill exchange? Is there something that you can do that will make you feel a bit better, but it can get you a bit more connected? So this might be just, you know, looking at your Twitter and getting involved with people that are showing their work online and giving them feedback. And then, you know, being able to help other people is really good for for raising your vibration, for making yourself happier. And slowly, you know, you can access other communities. There's so many great art communities and illustration communities out there. I'm adding these to your resource pack. Sorry, it's very hot. So there's the ALY, who are doing so much great work at the moment about connectivity, everybody being involved in different ways. They've got panel talks, they've got free talks, they've got masterclasses and workshops. You could be a member or not, just get on their mailing list. They're brilliant. There's blogs and websites that have really good communities on Twitter and Instagram. Again, find out about more artists that are doing what you're doing. Say hi, like their work, ask them if they dig what you're doing. and just make sure that you're connecting with people. It's really, really important. And again, going back to, if you're not feeling something, don't let it own you. You're in charge. You're in charge of your space as much as you can be, even if we're going to talk about that in a minute. And you're in charge. You have to always remember that. Journaling is really important for that. You have that time in the morning. Get up before anyone else. Get up before your kids, if it's possible. Get up before your housemates, before your cat pounces on you, and just get out whatever's in your head. It's so, so important. It's called Morning Pages, and I will put links to it and articles so you can understand a little bit more about that. And it's got me through a lot of tough times, and it's been really good for lockdown. Using your voice. How many times have you been on a call or a meeting, or you've had a call with a friend and that's the only time you've heard your voice? Using apps are really great. Sometimes I find that another way of using your voice is if I'm on my computer all day, if I'm designing, if I'm experimenting, if I'm drawing, whatever, and then I have like an email that I need to write and it's overwhelming, I will step out of my desk, I'll go from my desk, and I will maybe go and cook, maybe I'll go and walk, and I'll use a voice app. I'll probably use voice recorder, or even iNotes is really great, and I will just chat. I will chat about how I'm feeling. I will finish, I will start chatting to people that I know that I have to write an email to. Again, it's another thing that's really empowering, because hearing your voice and having the process of talking out loud, or processing through talking out loud, is really not only empowering, but it's also another way of getting through your ideas and getting results, really. Filling the space, filling your space with your noise, hearing what you sound like is really important. I realized that I could be listening to more things on my my speaker, listening to stuff on the radio. I realized the other day that I was singing what I thought was a jingle, and it was my alarm. That's so sad. So it's really good if you can heighten your senses. Put some incense on, then some incense, listen to some music. Don't let everything kind of feel kind of a bit, sometimes it can be a bit oppressive being in the same four walls in complete quiet on your own. So I'm going to go to questions, because I'm sure some of you might have to run off. So I've got a few Q&A. So I'm going to go backwards. I know. Okay. Okay, what if somebody who loves to work at night, is it a good habit to follow? Yes, I mean, that's the thing. If that somebody is you or whoever, you need to kind of, I mean, I used to be a real night owl. If you can work at night, if that's when you're at your most creative, again, that's looking at your awareness. When am I my most creative? When am I sitting to do another task? I've got ideas for work. That is really important. So if it's at night, then that's fine, and you can work accordingly. So if you need to, you know, I've got friends that paint in Greece, and they can only work at certain hours when it's not absolutely boiling, so they have to work at night. And other people, they're just more sparky at night, so they get up late and they just work around it. But just having that awareness of where it works for you, and then you can change it accordingly. Okay, okay, so the projector I use to project my drawings onto canvas it's an art projector. It looks a bit like a toy. It's really old school, and it's called an art prism, and it's made by, I got it online, it's in most art stores. it's quite expensive on Amazon actually, so try and get it in your art stores. It's called Art Prism. And they also make amazing light boxes. So it's called an Art Prism. You can get a Super Prism, or you can get the Art Prism, which I got, which is a bit cheaper. And I think it's exactly the same. And I use that for when I'm doing mural work. So I don't have to take the projector to the job. I will use tracing paper and then trace it large and then do a transfer when I get to the wall if I'm doing complex stuff. Okay. Yes, this will be running on YouTube. I know so many people got in touch and said that they wouldn't be able to be here, and it's a funny time. I know it's in the middle of some people's work hours, but we will be screening this on YouTube afterwards, so you will be able to see the playback. Okay. Okay, so I know a lot of people want to find out about style, and this is really important because there's the age-old, it's such an old debate. It's like, do you work in one style or can you work in lots of others? And obviously through my work, you will see that I work in a lot of different styles. I have to. I've tried to limit it to one style, but it just doesn't work for me. And again, this is about you knowing what you need. And I need to kind of explore and solve problems. It will be on Wacom's YouTube, I believe, Lucy. I love that I can read this here and then I can see this on my iPad. This is great. And also I'll be able to look at this too. Okay, yes, I will. So style for me, I mean, for me personally, because I'm have a background as a fine artist, a public artist, a mural artist, a print designer and illustrator, it's really important that I can still use all of those skills. And that's why Miss Led became a studio a couple of years ago, because I can work in collaboration and in partnership with brands or venues or cultural spaces, limitless really, and look at what they need and I have a really big toolbox of what I can use to create one of those things, whether it's a mural or I can create a mural, but I can maybe use a team and make some film production to present it online. I can do live broadcast, and then I'll work in a different way for the digital stuff. So I need to pick skills up and pick ideas up and learn things along the way. So that's just me. You need to know what works for you. But what I have got to say on that is, if you are working in a new style, because I think that can be procrastination, it can be negative sometimes, because you're like, oh, there's this really lovely thing that I'm working on at the moment, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at that shiny thing and I want to do that thing. And it's because our brains are kind of wanting a quick fix. So yes, have lots of things on the go, but it's about being committed and also having a body of work in that style. Work through it. Don't just jump from one thing to another. You want to have a portfolio. You want to evolve and work out what it is about that style that you like, what you want to develop in that style. And that is, then you're going to learn something, rather than going, I'm just going to do a caricature of this. I'm just going to do an animation of this. I'm just going to do this fine art piece. Really work with it. Okay, this is really, really good question. And I really hope that a few of the things that I've mentioned can resonate a bit with you, Keith. So Keith is saying that he's late diagnosed autistic with ADHD and is learning about organizing, and sensory stuff is really important. Yes, See, the bullet journal is really, really important because it kind of siphons everything down. If I am doing anything, the only reason my bullet journal isn't next to me right now is because I'm chatting to you. I have every day what I'm doing. I put down all my I put down what I'm doing, and I might just do this in the morning because I'll have wanted to do an hour's writing or half an hour's writing to kind of work out where I'm at and what I actually want to do today. What do I want to do today? So I'll go, all right, well, these are all the things that I have to do. These are all the things that I must achieve today. But if I don't, I'll just put an arrow on them instead of crossing them out, and I'll move them to the next day. And if I really do struggle, because if I'm not artworking and I'm doing lots of kind of organization stuff, I find that I feel like I've wasted time. So I use the bullet journal as accountability as well. And I think that's what you mentioned, Keith, is you're kind of tracking your progress. But so you can move things. If you don't achieve that, that's fine. Just move it to the next day, and you will eventually do it after you've written it like 14 times. You're just like, oh my gosh, I really need to do this thing. Sorry, shaky table. So bullet journal is amazing. I don't need to draw peonies in it. I don't need to spend ages doing a calendar. I'll just print stuff out. I just need to get to the bare bones. I need to get into a space where I feel like I'm doing stuff. A lot of people have got that kind of feeling of ADHD, and because we are asked to work on so many different devices, different formats, different time zones. And, you know, that's why I use this time blocking. So I know if I start a project and I just have 25 minutes, my brain's going to want to do more. So I just go, well, let's just give yourself 25 minutes and then come back to it. So I'm keeping alert, and I'm not getting too caught up in one project. And as an artist, I think it's really nice. This is something I wanted to mention. It's really nice to while away time and go, oh, this is so nice. I'm an artist. I love doing this, and I'm really getting into the line, and this is looking really beautiful. But sometimes I know from my experience, when I do that, I can kind of lose all the other things that are going on, and which is part of why I want to do that in the first place. But I need to kind of manage the other stuff that's going on in my life. My life stuff, my other project stuff, my client work, my social media, and such. So bullet journals really good. A4 sheets are really good. Just write down a project, and then you're just spidergramming all the things, just having a brain dump, and then working it out from there. Okay, I don't think I'll be able to answer all of these, and it's such a shame I don't get to see your faces. Somebody said, what made you leave to the UK to live in Portugal? Well, if you've ever been to Portugal, you will know how absolutely stunning it is here. It's beautiful. And I wanted to have the space, time-wise, and the space, the physical space. I wouldn't be able, I spent 20 years in London, and I really wouldn't be able to have the space and the life and work balance that I have here. And it has been really hard. It's been really hard to negotiate the new changes, but I needed something new. I needed new pathways. I needed new environment. I needed new inspiration. And yeah, I'm just in my first year, so I'm really, really happy. But yeah, everything. I love it here. Okay, with the Photoshop brushes, I don't know, I don't have any downloadable free photo brushes, but that's a very good point, Ariel. I could add that to my resource, because I did create some Wacom collaborated brushes, gosh, for the Wacom Create is what I'm thinking, a project that we worked on in 2015. So I'm just writing that down and trying not to wobble my desk at the same time. So I will put that in the pack, brushes. And I don't know if you can hear this, but somebody's playing the saxophone. Somebody was playing the flute the other day. It's so nice. I love it here. I'm very happy in Portugal. Okay, right. So I'm going to do another 15 minutes on questions, if that's okay with everyone. So I know a lot of you have to leave. Thank you so much for being a part of this very, very textural, very different webinar, and me kind of really configuring how to work the screens. But it's been so nice and such a privilege to be here with you today. I know that we've got a few questions, so I'm going to try and answer all of them. Freelance tips for an illustrator. What type of missions have been popular for you to sell? How do you get the commissions that you want? How do you sell prices? Oh, that's such a big question. That might be something that we that maybe I can add. I'm going to save all of these actually, and I'm going to look at the questions related to I am actually reading the last question that's come in. Oh, it's actually gone. Okay, how to stop doubting your capabilities? Because obviously we're talking about now. My work is very much about now. The spaces that I'm showing you is all work in progress. It's all kind of, I'm in a state of calamity in Portugal. I feel like that some days. There's lots of stuff going on, and I really like to answer the questions that are more related to how we're feeling and how we're managing. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to prioritize those. And someone, Isra, has talked about doubting capabilities and underestimating. It's very hot. Underestimating yourself as a woman. I think men always have high esteem without being qualified. Well, I think that would be a bit sweeping. I think men and women have different issues, but also similar issues, especially when it comes to self-esteem. I don't want to go too much into that, but I think I can answer how to work with doubting your capabilities and underestimating yourself. I don't want to make this kind of gender specific. I know that the industry that I worked in at the beginning was very male dominated, but what I really did was I just made myself visible. I worked really hard to make myself visible in that, and that was a really big time in my career, because it was really inspiring for other artists, but kind of other female artists that felt that they could do it too. So I find journaling is really helping my issues with self-belief. I find that journaling, it's really hard for me to find something that comes close to that, because you're able to develop your voice. Again, voice notes I find are really, really good. I listened to a past webinar, and an artist, I think it was Prudence actually, she mentioned about talking to herself, and she said that might be weird, but I so know what that means. You kind of like self-talk, I think she called it, and it's about connecting with yourself. being able to tell yourself in writing and out loud that you are doing this no matter what. You're doing this, and it might not be what you want straight away, but you're working through it. And you have to treat yourself like the person that is working towards something. You have to treat yourself like somebody that you're watching, trying and developing and wanting to succeed. And in the artist way, it talks about talking to yourself like a child, because our creativity and our creative voice it can be viewed as a child. So we're looking at it as nurturing ourselves. So those two things are really, really important, and they're really important right now, because we really need a lot of nurturing and looking after ourselves. And then, you know, when we can look after ourselves, we can go out and collaborate with other people and do things and develop our styles and have a bit more of a voice online and slowly come out. Know where you're at. Be at a point where you know where you're at, and just connect with that and just take it slowly. Okay, I got another question. Okay, so the book I will add, this is an easy question, so I'm going to answer this. The book I will add to your resources, it's called Organizing, oh my gosh, it's such a tongue tie today, I'm sorry. Organizing for Creative People. This is great. I'm going to add it to your resource pack. It's so good. And it's so nice books. They actually smell like books. It's so good. This has traveled from London, so yes, very nice. Like old school kind of organic paper. Really nice. The other book is The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron, love this. Did it again for the first time in 12 years on the last chapter now, and that's why I've turned my studio, my front room, into a painting studio, and I am so happy. Also in your pack, I am gifting you a few pages that didn't make it to my book, my portrait drawing book. A lot of people have been accessing this in quarantine. I've been seeing a lot of people's drawings, exercises. It's been so good. And I know that it is stocked by the very notorious large online global seller, but it also is stocked in the Tate Gallery and the National Portrait Gallery and other galleries in your cities worldwide. So if you can afford it, those extra few pounds or dollars or euros, then I would suggest buying them through the galleries and bookstores, because they really need a little bit of help now. This is figure drawing too, so that will be in your pack. It will be we just had so much information, we couldn't fit it all in, as I'm trying to do today. It's a theme, and then you'll get that in your pack. Very dramatic book slapping noise. Okay. Okay, how do you settle on what to do when you have lots of ideas? Great question, Susie. I hope you're still here. And for people like this is great. Okay, right. Okay, on my screen, which you should see, let's go to the right-hand side. It says materials and techniques to keep creative. So this could be like getting out of your creative block, or getting out of like getting to the next step. And Julia Cameron writes a little bit about this in the back of her book, which is about breaking through blocks. And there's some really lovely exercises for doing this. So again, to answer your question, Susie, I would say if you've got lots of ideas whizzing through your head, maybe put an A4 sheet together and just put all your ideas on one sheet, and then pick an idea and then do another A4 sheet, put that idea in the middle. So it could be like flowers in spring, for example, and then you're like, oh well, this could be an animation, this could be a live drawing, or this could be something that I want to create at home. Then you look at that as a project, and then you break it down. So you can do that with your projects. So I always use this technique, which is called 5-step forward. So you look at 5 things that you can either break it down, or 5 things that can move it forward. So it's similar to what you're talking about. So looking at not getting caught up in a situation, but also getting caught up in choosing what to do. And also something that I've learned a lot, and I've talked a lot to about with my mentors and my consultants, is knowing that there's lots of times and there's lots of things that you're going to have this idea buzzing around your head, like my consultant explained it like a mosquito. It's almost like this buzzing around your head, and then you pick up the mosquito, and only when you really look at it you realize, I don't want that. So it's taking it a little bit further. So if you've got these ideas, put them on paper, see how far you want to go. Maybe you go to 5 steps and go, actually, I'd rather not do that, but keep it, store it, put it in your folder. Then go to your next idea, do the same. So you're not going, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. You're actually moving it forward. So you could do this with your time blocking, you could do it with like a time app. So you're just going, I'm just going to spend 15 minutes on this. So I hope that answered that question. When do you feel more productive in general? I think in the afternoons. That's a really, really good thing to note. When do you feel creative? I also feel really creative when I've got a brush in my hand, or when I've got a Wacom stylus in my hand. I then have a sketch pad or a notebook next to me, and I would just write any ideas that I've got for something else, because it's kind of telling my brain wants to do something else now. I'm in the creative zone. It might be ideas for something that I'm working on here, but it might be something else. So I make sure that it's acknowledged so I can move on, but I'm capturing them. So I spoke to an artist called Kane Griffith, who's great, and he overpaints it, but he often writes notes on his canvas because his brain just sparks when he starts painting. So that's a really, really good win. Okay, how do I get a sense of community as an artist and connect with other artists? Sometimes artists have a reputation for being loner types. Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, this is kind of my life, really. That's why I like to be challenged by working live. I like to have, I need that thrill by working in different environments, because really I could just be in quarantine forever. But if I do that, then I get complacent and my work doesn't go anywhere. And once my work doesn't go anywhere, I get bored. And when I get bored, other people get bored. So online is probably a good idea, but also when we're in quarantine, obviously, to access communities. But as I said, AOI is really great. I don't know. Oh, you're based in London. This is a great one. So definitely going to meetups. Yo Illo's is really good. Yo Illo is really good. Twitter is really the best one. Noisy Pencil is also really good. I'm going to add all of these. Creative Boom, Digital Arts. These are all going to go on your resource pack. So I'm going to answer one more question before going, unfortunately. Oh, yes. Okay, I saw this pop up, but I couldn't answer it at the time. Have you ever had a mentor to help guiding you on the way? Where did you find and how can you ask for someone in a professional way to offer their time for free? Okay, so this is a really good question. It's a tricky question, but there are I think just asking around, you just start. That's something that's at the beginning of the artist way, is if you want something, you just start talking to someone and you just really start focusing on what you need. And when the time's right, that will be available. And I'm very, I know it doesn't sound very practical, but I know from experience that that's how it happens. So if I want to have a mentor, then I'll start talking to my friends that are artists, finding out who has a mentor. I have been lucky to have mentors all my life, on and off, since I was little. But I've also had to pay for consultants, and I've worked in different capacities, more sort of business, more sort of art. So it really, I do mentor. I've been mentoring for the first 6 months this year. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this kind of non-drawing based workshop. I think everybody should have a mentor, and I think it's really, really good to start talking about. The AOY do a great deal, if you're a member, to work with a lady called Alison Brannigan. I'm going to add her book to your list as well. I couldn't recommend her more, and she can tell you about your website, the next steps, and help you out with lots and lots of different business and art issues. Okay, I'm going to save all of these questions and I'm going to answer them in my blog next week, because I'm going on holiday. But I really, really am so happy to have this space, and thank you for allowing this space for me to chat and show you where I'm at with everything. And I really, really hope it inspired a few changes, maybe a few kind of questions, and some techniques, maybe some purchases of some really good resources and books, and really giving you a bit of enthusiasm and optimism about improving your space, your time, and your autonomy. That is a really, really important word for me. Autonomy, being in control. It's really, really important, especially at these times. And thank you so much for today. Thank you so much. I wish I could speak to you all and see your faces. I can't even see my face. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for this wonderful webinar. I found it very, very inspiring and super empowering, and that was so rich and full of really practical advice that that probably will help a lot of people to manage the situation, and also from a creative point of view, but even work-related point of view, to just basically give the right amount of time to make the right decisions for what you want and where you want to go. I found it really, really cool. So thank you very much for mentoring us in this 1.5 hours. I've taken away napping and mozzies. I found those 2 points really, really interesting, because yes, sometimes you really get into this tired mode and you feel like, am I plowing through? But just listening to yourself and say like, nah, let's step out of this treadmill, have a break for 5 more minutes, have a nap, go for a walk, and then go back again, makes such a difference. And those mozzies, that is just a beautiful picture of all those little, very loud and annoying, but actually tiny little tasks that can irritate you so much that you totally lose plot. So thanks very much for those insights. I'm really looking forward to that follow-up email and the pack. So everybody who's been asking that, and links to the YouTube video as a recap is going to be shared with you all in the email in a couple of days. So do look out for emails, and do check your spam if you didn't receive an email in the next couple of days. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great. As I mentioned earlier, I could talk about this forever. It's a really important subject, because I think when we're working on our own, we need to kind of own ourselves, and it's so important. There's so many lovely feedback. Thank you everyone for your feedback. I'm almost tempted to do a little Instagram live after this, because I don't think I'm going to manage on a blog post. But yes, thank you guys. It's been a real pleasure. Really, really enjoyable.
I mean, you do a lot of speaker opportunities and other events when they are allowed again. So to all of you on board, do check out Joanna's social media. She's usually at events and stuff, and it's a wonderful account. So do check her out. Let me share the screen so you have the handles. So as I mentioned, don't forget to follow Jo at Misled Studio on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Amazing accounts, really inspiring, lots of cool art, definitely worth following. If you're curious about what we are up to at Wacom, do follow us with @Wacom on the different platforms. And if you're now so inspired, or anyway, really creative and churning out content and artwork, consider tagging it with Made with Wacom, so we can pick it up from our social media channels and give you a spotlight and highlight where we find cool stuff. If you want to go shopping after this and want to improve your setup at home, do check out our e-store, because we run a couple of really, really cool offers for you guys, up to 15% on select products with the promo code WebinarMisled. So if you're considering, don't forget to use that voucher code. And that would be it from us. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again, Jo, for making this possible with us. And yeah, talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.